There are a lot of new emergent car brands on the market, but for this one here, VW executives have driven it and decided to invest $700 million in this very company, taking over 5% of its shares, because the XPeng G9, the large electric SUV, together with its sedan brother, the P7, have a platform which is obviously very interesting to Volkswagen. Why is that? And is this large EV SUV really that good? We're going to find out here with Thomas and Autogefühl in 4K, full screen, full length. Let's go here with the front of the XPeng G9. You can see the daytime running light all the way across, really cool. A very simplistic design already in the front. It reminds a little bit also of the design that NIO, for example, is using, and I will also go into some details where NIO and XPeng are different and what they maybe share or what's maybe somewhat similar. 4.89 meters or 193 inches is the length of the XPeng G9. This is more or less a length than towards the Tesla Model X. However, the pricing in Europe is between the Tesla Model Y and the Tesla Model X. So they try to offer a full package for a decent price, cheaper than the competitors. Wheels, either 19-inch or these here, the 21-inch, because this is the high trim vehicle. Really beautiful. Look at that here, this knurling around the wheel inside here, this inner part. So beautiful job indeed. The CD value is 0.27 and they make two different versions. Rear-wheel drive with an acceleration figure of more than 6 seconds, or an all-wheel drive version where the acceleration figure to 1 kilometer or 62 miles an hour is under 4 seconds. That's of course pretty impressive already. Then rear design, look at that, light strip also all the way through, and then this dot design right here. I think design-wise it's really attractive and clean and simplistic, yet they play a lot with light technology, and they also have some nice animations, for example, for a welcoming and goodbye light, both in the front and also in the rear. Turning indicators, slim integration here replaces the outer part, and also with this cascading function. In the rear, the turning indicators have this cascading form as well, and most of the stuff you see here today is indeed included with basically all the versions. There's just a 14,000 euros difference between the low spec and the high spec model, and that is hugely different strategically between this one here, the XPeng, or for example also a Zeekr, and Audi, BMW, Mercedes and VW, for example, where you always have like a base model and then the top spec is like double price or even more. Here we have the Netherlands pricing already, 58,000 euros for the small battery with rear-wheel drive, and then 14,000 euros more, 72,000 euros for the all-wheel drive version with the bigger battery. 76 kilowatt hours is the entry battery, the bigger one at 93 kilowatt hours. This is the key fob, and can you read this? I give you a couple of seconds time and then tell me if you could read that. Well, I couldn't, I had to ask for it, and it says X Opera, that's their sound experience system. The key fob itself is masterclass, it's so great, it really feels really premium. And you also have a separate button here for the charging flap. Sometimes it works, sometimes not. Here, have you seen that? It's a very clever integration here of that charging port and 300 kilowatt DC charging peak. And that comes from an 800 volt architecture. It means 10 to 80% state of charge in around 20 minutes. And that's of course really impressive. So let's see. I think it's a very good idea here, but you see, like everything you touch and feel and hardware-wise is working, there we go, is working very well, but software-wise and functions like these, I think they need a little more tweaking, and we're getting to a scheme there, definitely. Well, in 4K you have maybe seen on your big screen here this blue dot here. Have you ever wondered why it's sometimes on test vehicles they do that this dot here is basically on the lowest point, then they mark it that the car is supposed to stand that way. For example, also that the logos are upright and so on. So this is basically like a show marking when they put vehicles at a very certain point on the show parking lot and something, just wanted to tell you that. Some things I really prepare extensively before doing the review, of course, to give you the best information. Other things I try to be surprised myself that you can have the authentic experience while I'm doing that. for example, for opening a possible frunk. Yes, there is one, and oh, you see, this was not prepared, otherwise I would have removed it, and that's actually quite large, so it can easily house charging cables or even more. Let's open the doors here. When you open it here, then they fold out like this, otherwise flush. I mean, we know this mechanism from other brands already. It feels actually good, so it's a good build quality. I wouldn't say it's my favorite mechanism, but it's fine, you know. Then here, door closing sound is good, although it's frameless doors. Interesting. And then here, this is also an inbuilt soft close. And this is also a scheme all the way throughout this vehicle at that price point with so many things that were like only in options, 50,000 euros with the Germans. That's the thing. Here then, it's a nice covering here of the inside of the doors. DIN audio sound system. This is part of a premium package, one of the very few options. And then also door pocket, big enough. Even in the lower part here with soft touch, not only hard black plastic. We sometimes don't see that in 100K cars. Then interior, the steering wheel with a very open spoke design, I would call it that way. And real buttons at the steering wheel. That is amazing indeed. And the cool thing is here, this is a shortcut directly to the air volume, like the vent strength. And by that here, you control the temperature while driving up and down. And that's why I also don't need it in the middle part. This is a great idea. On the right side, you control the volume, for example. This very vehicle here is equipped, as I said, with this premium package. Another thing that does include it is animal skin seats. The base model, however, would feature leatherette seats then. So they do offer that. However, I think it's not really consistent because they also claim that sustainability is a core thing of their brand. I will talk to the CEO very soon about this choice, of course. Then, with 1.89 meters and 6'2", a lot of headroom left. This is here a fixed panoramic roof. There is no additional shade available. However, it is already quite dark. And I think it's a good decision because otherwise, when it's quite light and there's no additional shade, there's so much heat coming into the car. And for that one here so far, it was quite good. The ergonomics of the seat are also actually pretty decent. So I'm really satisfied with that. Long journeys, no problem at all. One small software flaw I discovered is that even when you set your user account here, often doesn't realize that the steering wheel starts always in the higher position and then you have to set it yourself once again. You do that here in the menu, have to press here and then I can, you know from Tesla as well, scroll down here and scroll them up. Then it goes towards you and down and so on, but it doesn't really save that. And this is a scheme once again throughout the vehicle that it has good mechanisms, good system, and the build quality on the interior is really amazing. That is better than with most other brands I've ever seen indeed. Wow, this is really wow. Just they need to tweak some of the software things, and yeah, they told me in China everything would be working very well, but they need to adapt that software also to the European market because they have to rewrite everything. And that is maybe also one of the things I'm awaiting that they still fix. Interior cockpit overview, super clean, minimalistic in a way, but then again also screen overload on the other hand. 10.25-inch instruments and 2 times 15-inch screens. Wow, that's of course like in your face with the screens, and definitely of course inspired by Tesla, maybe copied. What would you say? And also like NIO did basically, also with the menu structure. Or did Tesla just set an industry standard there? What do you think? Digital instruments, quite large and give you the most important information. When you hit the drive mode and change to this, you just have the speed pretty small there in the top part. And once again, as I told you earlier here, when you use your thumb on the left side of the steering wheel, you can control the temperature and also then here the vent strength. So that's a good and easy solution. Remember these here? Old Mercedes stall column, and these are also the same ones that Tesla then used from the Mercedes parts bin. Now XPeng are using them. More speakers from the DIN audio system. Infotainment system, pretty responsive also from the car internal map. They will also offer Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. That's a difference to NIO and Tesla who don't do this. Interesting. Then the left side menu structure here. This is where I go to the driving modes and so on. We'll test it on the German Autobahn very soon. Yes, of course, that is Tesla inspired. That is quite obvious, I think. the X-Pilot, they drive level 4 autonomously already in China. In Europe, that's not possible yet, and they also had to rewrite the whole software. You can, by the way, have for the display like a day or night view. I always use the night view, that it's better here for the camera to use. Temperature is changed right here, for example, and here AC on and off. You can also use the voice control. Hey XPeng, temperature 20 degrees. That works, for example. And then you have another app overview. And here, for example, we can also go to the energy meter. We can change a charging limit and then also take a look at the most recent fuel economy. I'll give you an update on the German Autobahn at different speeds than in the driving part. By the way, sometimes when I say good things about Chinese vehicles, I receive criticism saying like, hey, you are advertising Chinese vehicles. When I sometimes say good things about German vehicles, people say, hey, you advertise German vehicles. The thing is, I show the pros and the cons of every car on the market, and then you can decide. What I actually do is, when I also know the history, the background of the vehicle and the reliability and so on, then I can give a final recommendation with my whole driving impression plus the possible cost of ownership, reliability for the owner. That's why I often, take really hours and hours per day to answer comments or private messages on all different kinds of social networks. But just because I say something is good or bad with the car does never mean that I just on a tendency say like buy a car from a certain region, country or plant or something. Truth is that almost all vehicles nowadays are basically global vehicles because they consist of parts from all around the world, and sometimes manufacturers from that country also manufacture in the other countries. Yeah, it's really hard to draw a line somewhere, What I can understand when people say, I try to find a vehicle to support my local business or my local country or something when the car is also built in there. But to know that, you really have to check each individual model, where it is built and what parts are in there. That's a really tough thing to do. This middle console here is also very clean and well thought out, except for one thing. These are inductive charging pads. It's cool that we have two. However, that if smartphones get so hot here, especially at least the iPhone here, it needs cooling nowadays. Every car needs that when it has an inductive charging pad, so it definitely overheats here. Then these cup holders, it's good that you can pull them up to clean them, and you can pull them down here. Also good feedback, adaptive. Then you push them in again, and then they come up, for example, for cleaning and against fingerprints. They might just be too small for large bottles and so on. This middle armrest here is also cool because it opens both ways. Tell me from which car is it reminding you of? Then tell me in the comments. And on the inside there is also decent space, also for the ladies, for handbags. This is, by the way, a high-grade leatherette, so you see it also works that way. Yeah, but it's also very good usage of space. Oh, even with cooling on the inside. A large lower storage area here, USB-A and USB-C charging, and another 12-volt power supply. Yeah, sometimes I also take my glasses off that I don't have like any reflections from an external light inside the glasses. What I want to tell you is that the lettering of XPeng on the outside and so on, and the name, like the pronunciation XPeng, is just used internationally. Inside China they say Xiaopeng and they just use the logo. And Leah is showing us her favorite feature, and that is the passenger mirror. It has this, very elaborated style, and then automatically there is a mode in the passenger infotainment system where you can adapt and change the lighting there, especially for makeup features. And look at that, you can even set an individual seat mode for the makeup position. And the passenger seat here also has a special relaxing function here with this calf rest. Goes quite high actually then for this maybe sleeping while charging. By the way, you can see from my driving position, I cannot see the passenger display. I have to go around like this, and then I can see it, because only the passenger is supposed to see it, and it's basically mirroring what you also see on the left. And you can set your own temperature, the seat heating and so on. or then the special like makeup function or a yoga mode even. Rear doors. Even these have a good door closing sound, although they are frameless. And on the inside, all the way soft materials, even at the bottom of the rear doors. And as I said, we hardly see that in nowadays premium cars. Wow. Here you can also control the back part of the rear seats at the inside of the doors. And this little button here, this fella, is a mute button. Every single seat, also in the rear, has a mute button for the infotainment system. And if you wonder now, will the kids play around with that? Yes, they definitely will mess with that. Then let's get in the rear and you can see still some legroom left. Good packaging indeed. And there's here enough headroom left, no problem at all. It's also very comfortable in the rear. As I said, I can also control the back part right here. Easily done actually. There is no middle tunnel, really using a dedicated EV platform. So you can easily house 5 tall adults in here. This is also this gentleman's function here, that the driver can control the co-driver seat easily like this. And we can pull down this control unit here. And then there are some cup holders in the front. And here, is this dampened? No, this is not dampened. I mean, if that would be dampened now, then I would say like, okay, this is like the best build quality I've seen, you know. But yeah, at least something I can find they can improve here. But once again, it's astonishing how well this interior is built. Also check out this rear handle here with soft close or soft retraction. And there are also lights here, and everything you see and feel just feels amazing. Now checking out the trunk or the boot. This is here in the standard configuration, 660 liter up to 1580 liters. Let's check it out. Here first of all, top cover has no rails at the side, and then the normal length is about 1 meter or 40 inches. It's actually quite decent, and the width also easily 1 meter or 40 inches, even between the wheel arches. Here a little bit wider, and also additional from speaker from the DIN audio system. Then also take out the luggage, because underneath we have even more space, for example for the charging cable in a separate box. Then in this case on the right side you can press these 2 buttons and then the seats fold like this. So it's actually a good mechanism. When you have the air suspension, which is connected to the highest trim model, then you can also lower the whole vehicle for loading in and out and so on. All right, when I come to Europe, I have to face the German Autobahn. Acceleration from 70. 140. 170 kilometers an hour. Wow, that was pretty quick. Official acceleration figure is 4 seconds. 0 to 1 kilometers an hour, or 60 miles an hour. 62 miles an hour. That all-wheel drive version we're driving, wow, that's pretty explosive. And we have different driving modes. This was here the sport mode for maximum performance actually. You can also see these red lines here. So yeah, that's actually pretty cool. And at the same time, you can also go back to the standard mode when you want to relax. Yeah, there is always some kind of sound feedback for that. This top trim version is also equipped with the air suspension and 21-inch wheels. So when you're driving over some small bumps, then you feel 21-inch wheels, of course, have less dampening than 19-inch wheels, than the base ones. However, the air suspension is also doing a good job, because it makes this ride a little bit softer, and you can have both, basically, comfort and sportiness, because when you go back here to the sports mode, then the ride gets a little bit stiffer. What is not changing that much is actually the steering wheel. Let's test it here. Sport mode versus standard mode. Doesn't make any difference, I feel. And that's the one thing about agility of this vehicle. You don't have this feedback from the steering. So it is really light and soft, and you kind of steer like you would steer through thin air or something. It's not super bad or something, but it just lacks feedback, so you don't feel so much connected to the car via the steering wheel. Noise insulation, driving here 130 kilometers an hour, so like around 70-80 miles an hour, and it's really very silent, and the vehicle is very calm on the road. Let's do a lane change here in the normal mode. Yeah, it's also very relaxed, changing back, accelerating while doing that, really relaxed indeed. As for braking, you can set different modes. You can have medium, low, high, or the X pedal. too frequent operation. Please try again later. Okay, so they're trying to prevent you to change stuff too often, obviously, while driving. So when you have low, then you lift your throttle off the pedal and there's hardly any recuperation. And the other extreme would be then the X pedal, and that one would be then kind of like a one pedal driving feeling. So you can decide what you want to go for. Let's go back into the sports mode. So how does it behave here when you lane change then? Yeah, it's a little bit stiffer from the suspension, definitely more feedback. So it feels really good. You feel you're driving a big and heavy SUV, yeah, considering also that size of the battery, yes, of course. But still, hardware-wise, I have to say, it's very well done. And if you then think about that, for example, the competition from NIO and Tesla, they have similar offerings, like also in the size and so on, but they're both way more expensive. Then you think about, does Tesla or NIO offer anything else what they don't offer here? Or then, of course, thinking about the big Germans, Mercedes, Audi, BMW, do they have something against this here? And then it gets really tricky, especially at that price point here. So that's the very interesting thing. Remember, this one here, length of Tesla Model X. But
congestion zone ahead.
Thank you, I didn't ask for that. But the price between the Y and the X. So, and that's always the thing, that they offer the products full spec and so on at a very decent price. Wow, the acceleration is really quick, especially in the sports mode here. So the rear drive version itself would surely be enough, I would feel.
Congestion zone ahead.
Okay, I don't need that, and also not so loud. Here now in this corner, yeah, don't feel so much connected to the steering, but the car feels actually quite agile, besides from that not connection from the steering. The turning indicator, by the way, is always going back to the neutral position, but without, you know, giving you a haptic feedback when the turning indicator sound is over. So do it like this, and then you have to press it back again, basically. Or sometimes, let's see if it does here, when I'm going right, then turning left, it should cancel the turning indicator process. Yeah, it does it, but it doesn't flip back or something, so you don't get a haptic feedback for that. It's very interesting when you use the turning indicator, you just hear it on the left side when you're turning left, and you just hear it on the right side when you use the right turning indicator. That's also a very interesting thing. When we are at speed, 120, let's go. Good performance, 160, 170, 180. Almost 200 kilometers an hour, 125 miles an hour. Wow, now it gets really rough and also a little bit out of control in a way, you know, in comparison. There you feel that the 21-inch wheels are kind of big for that vehicle, definitely. Air suspension set on sports mode. Also, once again, a little bit stiff. Let's put it to standard once again, see if this... Yeah, it's tricky to change that in the screen while driving, definitely. Yeah, now we're a little bit softer, but overall, the setup of the vehicle is not too soft, I would say. At the same time, when you accelerate here a little bit, then you can make it, a little bit shaky. But overall, I'm really happy with the hardware they deliver here. And after all, this large SUV is not meant primarily for that very sporty drive, but more for this, constant cruise and relax and so on. And I think the seat ergonomics is also very good. So they have good long-term comfort. I can always say that. And there's also this spacious, roomy atmosphere and so on. And I mean, we're driving really fast, 150 kilometers an hour now, and it's still very silent in here. I mean, some software things you already heard can be annoying at times. At least I feel it's quite pretty cool that I can change the temperature here on the left side of the steering wheel with the jog wheel here, and also the vent strength right and left. That's easily done, so I can control the climate unit easily while driving, although nothing is here, so I don't have to use that in the touchscreen. I'm really happy for that. So this is a very good solution they found in here directly at the steering wheel. Overall, I think the Autobahn test itself, that one is already mastered. The question now is, of course, about the assistant driving system.
X-Pilot ACC activated. Please drive carefully.
Okay. And now, let's see. Here I put the speed a little bit higher with my left thumb. Distance to a car in front of me is being kept. This so-called X pilot is activated. It's also here. Lane departure sensitivity, let's put it to normal. Speed limit assist. Feel the distance maybe a little bit too far. Yeah, I can adjust the distance. Let's put it a little bit closer here. It's also easy solution to control the distance here. So always when the ACC is activated, then the distance can be ruled here at the steering wheel. Lane keeping
Congestion zone ahead.
Yeah, that's a little bit annoying, I have to say. Hands on the steering wheel, he's saying. So in here, like the lane keeping assist is also, yeah, you see. So the assistance systems are not really on a standard yet where I would say like, hey, this is like super great and I would trust in that. And the reason for that is in China, they're already driving level 4 autonomous with this vehicle here. And they say that's working perfectly. But then they come to Europe and they have to reprogram all the cars. They basically have to
Congestion zone ahead.
throw the software to the trash because of data security issues here in Europe. They can't just copy-paste all the stuff and then they have to rework the stuff, and it can be that things are not working. So software-wise, and we've seen it with all Chinese manufacturers so far, they still have to tweak all the stuff for the European market. But performance and hardware is definitely already tweaked for the European market. Wow, that is working very well. So once again, impressed while driving. I think if they could tweak the steering input, the connection from steering to the driver, steering wheel, vehicle, road, that would be something that would need to be done. I think you can fix that. Also, software setup wise and so on. Yeah, and then of course still work a little bit more with the software right there. Now, very important, of course, what about the concise consumption? Let's go to we're on standard mode. Let's see, as for the economy, and let's put it once again to the cruise control, or at least let's put a steady speed. Here now at 130 kilometers. You see there that I tend to keep the turning indicator more often than I want to actually. Yeah, if you use just a tipping function, I think that's then a better thing, definitely. So, and I put it now here to the recent 2.5 kilometers, and we're driving now steady like 125, 130 kilometers an hour, and see what economy figure we can score there. Then we'll go to 100, because that's also like a very typical motorway speed, 1 kilometers an hour, like 60 miles an hour. Of course, when you drive really, really fast, like we did here, really floor it out. Now we had a pretty high energy consumption, was more than 25, like 26 kilowatt hours on 1 kilometers. That's of course pretty high, but absolutely normal when we really floor it out. And let's see what can we score now with some realistic long-term and also non-German speeds here. So at 130 kilometers now, we're around 22 kilowatt hours on 1 kilometers. That's close, a little bit less than 3 miles per kilowatt hour. And now I've been driving 100 kilometers an hour or 60 miles an hour for quite some time. And the average here is around 20 kilowatt hours on 1 kilometer, so slightly less. And that's a little bit more than 3 miles per kilowatt hour. That would mean a concise range at very good temperatures here, 23 degrees outside, so 73, 74 degrees Fahrenheit. Here around 460 kilometers or 290 miles. And we also tested the city consumption for you, so rather lower speeds and so on. This is then at 15 kilowatt hours on 1 kilometer, so that's more like 4 miles per kilowatt hour. That would then mean a city driving range in good mild temperatures of more than 600 kilometers or 370 miles. So it really depends, but I think a good average is always when you drive 1 kilometers or 60 miles now, because it shows that it also can drive at significant speeds in a good way. So considering at that price, with that high spec and equipment, everything it delivers and so on, this is really impressive, and I can very well understand why VW is spending $700 million on this platform here. They will use this actually, first of all, for 2 Chinese models, similar to this one, the big SUV, and also for the big sedan. And VW and XPeng also want to collaborate even more and, exchange vice versa, some knowledge, and maybe even build cars together in the future, maybe even then for European or US market. So I think this collaboration will even grow further. Overall, everything we touch and see and feel from the hardware, how the car is driving, is really excellent. And if you compare it, for example, to NIO, who are getting more to this premium pricing region, this one here is clearly less expensive than a NIO, and it is a better vehicle, definitely. And if you compare it to a Tesla, for example, yes, Tesla meanwhile has way more elaborated software. That's a huge difference. And maybe their electric motors are a little bit more efficient and also their aerodynamics are a little bit better. But from driving, this one also drives better than the Tesla. I really have to say that as well. So I feel that this brand here has indeed huge potential, and that's also what the analysts of VW said, and that's why they made this investment here. Of course, the crucial thing is here adapting the software for the European market. Why is that so important? So the Chinese manufacturer, this one is driving level 4 autonomously in China already. But when they come to Europe, they have to throw away all of their software because it's not in accordance to data security rules here. They have to redevelop their own software then. Yeah, and that's of course a huge problem, and they just need time to fix this. So some things need to be fixed in assistance systems, how quick and responsive everything is working, and that everything is working flawlessly without errors and so on. This can be done. It is only software, however, it's also not easy. But I think that when they fix these small things here, which we also experienced today in our review, the platform itself and the base technology in the hardware is really excellent, and this can be a problem for the German manufacturers. VW saw that and says, hey, we just take a share of the cake. Another interesting or promising brand is also Zeekr, and we already have 2 reviews of them here.